Hey, well, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blackaby, and I am joined once again, as I always am, by the one, the only, Naya Carlson. How are you doing today, Naya?
I am feeling dazzling today.
Dazzling. Ooh.
I again forgot that you were going to ask me how I was doing, and so I just looked up adjectives, and that was the first one I saw. So,
well, I'll admit, I don't really know what that means to feel dazzling, but I kind of want to feel dazzling.
Well, you'll know when you feel. You'll know.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But another thing I know is that we are not alone on this podcast. This is another exciting episode. We're never alone. We got Jesus, but we also got a very special guest today, someone that we've been excited to have on the podcast, a friend of the Collision. So now, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
Yes, today we have a very special student of screenwriting and creative writing at Asbury University. She grew up as a missionary kid in North Macedonia, which we found out today is a country, where she fell in love with stories. She has several award-winning short films and feature film screenplays and is currently writing the Wovenstone Trilogy book series, which I'm very excited to read. So, Sabina Boyer, thank you for coming on today. You've also written several articles for the Collision, so thank you for those. But can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little about who you are.
Yes. Hi, guys. Very happy to be here. I am Sabina Boyer. North Macedonia is a country. It was not a country when I moved there. It was actually called Macedonia, and then we basically got in a very petty hissy fit fight with Greece. It's a whole thing. So now we're North Macedonia.
No.
But yeah, I have loved stories and writing ever since I was a kid. I went through a phase where I thought I was dyslexic. Turns out writing's a lot easier once you get past that, so that was great. And yeah, I just love talking about stories and exploring different types of mediums, and I'm happy to be a friend of you guys at the Collision.
Yeah, so we're excited. So if some of you guys have followed us beyond the podcast world on like our website, thecollision.org, you have probably stumbled upon some of Sabina's articles. I know it seems like people are more excited for those than they are to read my articles or Naya's. So we'll take that for what it's worth. But excited to have you on. The perspective as a young creative, someone that's studying, pursuing some of those dreams, but also just someone that's a deep thinker about the arts, has a lot of interesting perspectives on that. I know I have personally loved the articles that you've been able to publish through the Collision. And there was one that you wrote recently, which has actually inspired us to, okay, we know what, this is such a good article, such a good topic that you're touching on that we just need to have her on the podcast and dive into it. And that is an article which you wrote for, published through the Collision, called Beautiful Lies, Where Do We Draw the Line? Kind of tackling the issue, the question of, as a Christian with entertainment, like, you know, where is sort of that murky, ambiguous line of, you know, engaging with the arts, being plugged into culture, and, you know what, this just doesn't feel right. I probably shouldn't be stepping into this. So we're going to get into the article a bit and the topic, but maybe share a little bit just about the article and kind of what inspired you to kind of start wrestling through that.
Yeah. So growing up as a missionary kid, I was very sheltered. Shocker, it happens. And I got to college and I knew I wanted to do film and creative writing and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, even professors are recommending things that I'm like, this would never have happened in my house. And so it's just an interesting journey over the last 3 years of slowly getting more and more comfortable engaging with parts of culture that I wouldn't have before. And more recently, as I've gotten further down, realizing the process of drawing your own line and trying to find what that line is, and kind of wrestling with the uncomfortable nature that it's not the same line for everybody. Even morally, sometimes it's not the same line for everybody. And trying to figure out why that is and where we as a culture can go wrong with drawing this hard line in the sand of, okay, this is too far, we can never go here. But maybe letting other things slip or doing it for the wrong motives. So that's been something that I've been kind of journeying through myself and was really excited to get to write the article about.
What's been like the most shocking thing that a professor has recommended to you?
I have had, oh gosh.
I know there's
definitely we had a professor here who really loved zombie stuff. Just loved zombie stuff. Was trying for a while to do a full semester class just on zombie material. And it was like, oh, okay, this is odd. Or watching movies for homework that are R-rated. And being able to be open to discussion of like, okay, if you're not comfortable with this, we're not going to force you to watch it. But having professors ask you like, okay, well, if you're not comfortable with this, tell me why. Do you have a reason why? Or is it because it has a different little symbol on it than what you're used to? Yeah, so it's an interesting mix of things. Especially last year we had a guest speaker come to campus and talk all about Christianity and horror movies and how horror films do a better job than a lot of media of like showing the struggle of good versus evil. And it's like, yeah, this wasn't discussed when I was 12 growing up overseas.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because I'm older than both you, both you, Sabina, and Naya.
No, I'm actually 85. I just hide it well, you guys.
But it's interesting to me because I've been able to sort of track some of this, I guess like the general way that Christians have been, and again, I've been plugged into this sort of world for a while, and for a very long time, like the discussion with Christianity and the arts was like entirely 100%. Where do you draw the line? It's all about the content. The movies almost aren't even like movies. They're just sort of vessels for content, and it's either good or bad. And like it seems like in the last, I don't know, I think mostly for better, but we've sort of moved beyond some of that where it's, now it's more thoughtful engagement, but it's almost become like taboo to even bring up the question of where's the line. Like that's so associated with like the overly sheltered, the Christians that just, they don't like movies, it's all content. And like, I don't know, it's almost like that conversation it's kind of course corrected so much that it's just not talked about very much as far as like we still need to draw the line somewhere. Like not everything goes, that's not, you're not being a stuffy, overly sheltered Christian for asking those questions, which is why I love your article, because your article kind of captures both like a love for stories with also a thoughtful question of like, hey, but like we're also called to be holy and like called to be Christian. Like there are some of those hard questions, but kind of to start, because what I liked where you started your article, because I think you started further back than a lot of the conversation is. So there's a quote where you kind of raised
the beginning.
Yeah, the very beginning. Because you start with like a series of questions early in the article where you ask, what is the purpose of art, the purpose of enjoyment, the purpose of humans? Those aren't like, there's some pretty big questions. So I
definitely answered all three in my 700 words, you guys.
Yeah, so give us the definitive answer on all three, though. But I think the question of starting with sort of the why and not just the what is sort of how I thought of that. Like, I think a lot of the questions are like the what of the content and what do we do. You sort of started more of like, why do we watch stories? Why do we engage with films? Like, what is the purpose of enjoying some of that? So I don't know, either Sabina or you, Naya, like, why is that an important place to start? Like, just sort of knowing more the purpose for engaging and enjoying before we even get to the still important questions of like the content and the line and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is not going to answer your question, but I had a class in college. I think it was literally called like, what is art? And the only thing that I remember from that class was our professor showing us this video of this guy that was like really high and he was in the mountains and he just was videoing this rainbow and he just kept freaking out because more rainbows kept appearing. And that's all I remember from that class. So maybe Sabina will have a better answer than I do. It was great.
Oh, well, I can't beat that. But I think it's part of where I wanted to start there was I had gotten to the place early this semester where I was watching some different things and engaging with some different things that it was the first time it was making me feel like I was crossing a line, but I was still enjoying it. Which was a weird place to be in because it's like, it's well made, it's well acted, it's funny. Like all of this stuff, like I fully understand why people like this material and yet it's still making me uncomfortable. And so starting to look through like, okay, I'm enjoying it. Enjoyment is great, but what is the purpose of enjoyment? Like, is it just for me to laugh at this thing and to be entertained, or is there supposed to be something deeper to it, which is what I'm missing? is the purpose of humans even to have enjoyment? Is the purpose of art to give enjoyment? And kind of seeing how those three interplay, at least in my own experiences, to try and figure out why sometimes it can be harder to define that line than others.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, like even taking it away from art, just how important the question of why is, because just in general in life, you're gonna like have such a a richer understanding of the world and of life and of your relationships and experiences by asking why and not just what. Like that's the purpose of kind of critical thinking, is teaching student that I think we're losing honestly in the university system in a lot of ways, but that's another conversation. But it's like teaching people to critically think and to think, why am I feeling this way? Why is this person feeling this way? How can we have a dialogue about that and not just what you're saying is wrong, you know?
Well, yeah, and I mean they're hard questions. Those are complicated questions too, because I think even I know like me and Naya with different movies, like I think of what's the one battle after another, where we sort of we both kind of came at that. I mean, I think we both ended up liking that movie. But
I think I enjoyed it a little more.
I think you enjoyed. I think you enjoyed it more, and I think part of it is sort of not that one of us was right or wrong, but like how we answer those questions.
Right.
Yeah, other than me, but. I think sort of how that, it's sort of like, this is good. And I think if we focus on this, like, hey, this is really good, well made, well acted, well everything. Obviously, as we saw at the Oscars, like, you know, a good piece of art. And I came at it more because I did the review for it. Like, yeah, but like there's some content, there's some worldview stuff that I think goes against sort of a biblical worldview. Again, not that that's necessarily wrong to be exposed to things that go against my worldview, but this sort of those questions, like, is it okay? Like, I don't know. You sort of see even just how two Christians can engage with the same thing. These foundational questions can lead you to have conversations. And I think again, that's why we love your article. Like having those conversations is kind of the point to me. Like that is, rather than just sort of, hey, here's the definitive, like, you know, it used to sort of be that, you know, Christians don't watch R-rated movies, and we want like this, we want the simplistic, you know, the answers, and it's like, well, there's a lot of R-rated movies maybe Christians shouldn't watch, a lot of PG movies maybe Christians shouldn't watch, but I think the conversations sort of are the thing. And there's another quote that I love from your article that kind of touches on a bit of that, of sort of how you, I guess, like how you start to step in and have those, like, answer those questions and decide, you know, am I feeling comfortable with this? You make a great quote, says, "Art with grace is beautiful. It is well made, appealing, and layered. Without grace, even the most honest art is merely propaganda. Without truth, the most graceful art is a beautiful lie. And there's nothing more dangerous than a beautiful lie."
That's so
poetic. I know. I was like, it's one of those things where, like, hey, I wish I wrote that. It's one of the, but maybe explain to me, because that's obviously where the article title itself, "Beautiful Lie," that's sort of a foundational. Maybe explain a bit, because I think there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of meat to that quote and that some of that content. Maybe explain a bit what you meant by sort of that balance of grace and truth.
Yeah. And the balance of grace and truth, I wish I could take credit for it. I started thinking about because my freshman year, we actually had Andrew Peterson visit campus, who is an amazing singer-songwriter, storyteller. You can go on and on.
I'm such an Andrew Peterson fanboy.
Oh, yes.
So.
But he had a Q&A and was asked if it's better for Christian art to ask questions or answer questions. And it was interesting because he took the question in this direction instead, of how sometimes more important than asking, well, does it outline all of the answers to Christianity? Does it do all of this? Does it do all this? It's more important to ask, is it beautiful and is it true? And I think that's a balance that we need to be talking about more as Christian storytellers, because yes, truth is very important. We all agree that truth is very important. We want to be spreading the good news and the things that we believe in, the things that we know are true. But if it isn't done beautifully, no one's going to care. Even the people who agree with us aren't going to care. There are a lot of things out there that I agree with their worldview and I never want to watch in my life. Please don't make me. Because they have no soul. They have no artistry. They're not art. They're a sermon on film. And to some extent, there can be a place for that. but it will not touch people in the same way, and it will not make them think in the same way. And it, to some extent, will not glorify God in the same way if you're not putting your full into it, if you're not putting your artistry into it. But I think the opposite is also true, where sometimes, especially those of us that are going into the arts, we can get so wrapped up in how beautifully something is made or how incredible the talent behind it is that we can end up excusing more than we think we are. And that can be very dangerous just for ourselves in what are we elevating and what are we modeling ourselves after. And if it's something whose core is against what is true and what we think is true, are we aware of that while we're looking at these things? So that was something I kind of wanted to bring to light a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's almost. I mean, I don't think it's almost. I think it's pretty clearly more dangerous or concerning or just meaty, like to go from that perspective. Like I think if something's true, true but not beautiful, then I think everyone tunes it out. Even the people that agree with what's being talked about don't necessarily, like a lot of the back, I think we've grown beyond it, but like some of the old like Christian movies were that. It's like, hey, this is true. I agree with everything happening in it, but my goodness, this is a terrible movie. Like, there's nothing cinematic about this. I'm not convinced, and I affirm the message. Like, I think that doesn't convince, but I think you can, like the other way, if something that's it's beautiful but not true, because you can still enjoy the beauty of it. It can suck you in a bit more that like, okay, yeah, it's not true, but it's just so good. Like I know there's been a couple of movies and stuff that, like, cause I review movies I wouldn't normally like go out to see. And it's like, there are definitely movies where like, this is just so good. But like, the more I think about it, but it's so problematic. Like it's so, like I have issues with like every underlying philosophy in this movie. But like it's just so good, and like what do you do with those things? And I think maybe reviewing it is slightly different than like just watching it for entertainment. There's different, I don't know how you balance it, but what do you think that like, this sort of that, I guess that balance of sort of the good, the true, the beautiful, like because I think there is that, especially I think people that appreciate the arts. Like I know you, like Naya is a film school graduate. Sabina, you're in school for that. Like I think I don't know. I think the ones that can like appreciate the technical side too, like the craftsmanship, it's almost more. You got to be more intentional to back up. I think, and because it's like, well, this is so good. Like, you so appreciate that, and I think you should. But what do you think? Like, how do you sort of navigate some of that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think I do let a few more things slide than maybe you do, Daniel. I don't know about you, Sabina, but I think I don't know. For me, the hard line that I have is like sex on screen. I'm just like, no one needs to see that. But other than that, it's really difficult to decide whether or not something is worth watching or not worth watching. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, Daniel.
Well, the answer for people is this: you just go to the collision.org, and that's where you can that's where you can tell the whether or not
they got you covered, guys. You're good.
But I think I don't know. I think your uncertainty for that actually leads into the next. Because again, another thing I like that you share in the article, Sabina, is you share sort of like a personal. And I won't lie, both me and Naya were trying to figure out, like, we're trying to do Sherlock Holmes.
What is the show?
What is we're trying to, like, look, there was, like, the meme of the guy on the board. We're trying to figure out what show you were referring to, but you share kind of, like, a personal of you actually, like, not just theoretically talking about this, but like you and going through this in your mind through a specific show. And you say the quote, and then we can get into this, but it says, when I watch a show that states that heaven is more evil than hell, I can't convince myself I'm glorifying God. Deep down, I know I'm elevating my love of art above my love of God. I'm embracing a beautiful lie. And I'll let you speak to that, Sabina, but I like that the way you unpack that story in your article is you're not necessarily measuring it against sort of like, here's my guidelines that I came in with, and it didn't check all the boxes. Therefore, like, it very much is like an intuitive, like, as you're watching this show, at least that's my take from what I read that you wrote, like you're feeling sort of convicted, like, hey, this, you know what, this just doesn't feel right. Like maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Kind of like navigating those questions in real
But you
time.
still like ask, like we were talking about before, you ask, why does this not feel right? And I think that's super valuable. And I love how you said it's because I'm elevating my love of art above my love of God, which I had never thought of before, because as we talk about a lot, like I think in our head, like art is so tied to God. It's hard to
Yeah.
kind of see art itself as an idol, you know? But yeah. What were you saying, Daniel? I'll let you finish.
No, well, I'll pass it to you, Sabina. Just sort of that. I don't. You don't need to, unless you want to, like share the specifics of that experience. But just sort of that going through that sort of I don't know, wrestling with that, and sort of how you sort of came to that conclusion. Like, hey, you know what? This is good. This is beautiful, but it's like a beautiful lie, and I don't need that right now. Like, I don't know if you want to speak a bit to that.
Yeah. I actually started, it was a show that I've had multiple times where I've had a show I'm like, I would never watch that. That's so unpure. And then I get to the point I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And this was one that had always been on my list of like, oh yeah, I'm never gonna watch this. This is crazy. But I had heard about one of the early episodes in season 1 and how it dealt with a very difficult topic in a super sympathetic manner that just does not get talked about very much. And I was like, okay, like I am interested in how to deal with something like that. I'll watch to that point just to get a sense of how they did it and what it feels like. And I did, and they did handle it very well, and it was very well crafted, and it was very well made. And I found myself enjoying the show to a certain extent. Not my new favorite, Daredevil. I'm sorry, no one's ever going to pass you. But I kept watching, and I kept seeing where it was going. And with other shows that I would go into knowing that it was very close to my own line, I actually kind of got in a habit of like I would sit down with my popcorn Saturday afternoon, procrastinating from studying, it's fine, and literally just start with like, okay, God, please watch this with me. And just watching it mindfully of like, I'm going into this knowing it's going to say things are true that I don't believe are true. I'm choosing to engage with it anyway because I think I will grow from it. But I also don't want to be doing it on my own necessarily. And this was a show that I started doing that, and I was like, I don't even believe myself when I'm asking for that at the beginning of these episodes. Like, it's getting to a point I'm not growing from this. I'm not getting anything out of it. I disagree with everything it's saying is true. And I'm asking you to watch it with me, but I'd be embarrassed if you walked in the room while I did. And just that realization of, it's fine, I can handle it. It's not going to turn me into a terrible person, but it's not making me grow. And the only reason I'm still here is enjoyment. And at this point, that's not a good enough reason anymore.
Well, I think, well, I think that's a key thing too. Like, I know some of the pushback you get if you do sort of talk about the question of like, you know, hey, you know what, maybe we shouldn't watch this. Maybe this isn't edifying. You often sort of hear some version of like, yeah, but like, it doesn't affect me. Your movies don't affect me. And it's like, you know what, it's not just about like, there is that, you know, like I think if you listen to a lot of profane stuff, maybe that will affect you. Like, I don't know, like, but like, that's not the only question. It's like, you know what, like, this isn't going to make me do anything that the characters are doing on screen. Doesn't mean it's edifying. Like, it doesn't mean that it's not, you know, I'm just spending precious hours of my life watching stuff that, you know, for pure, simple, like, you know, trivial, you know, trite enjoyment. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that's just an important point I think to bring up.
It still does have an impact on like, not your soul, but like on like your spiritual health, I think. At least it does for me, you know, like maybe it would increase like a sinful thought pattern, or I'm not thinking like constantly of things of above. I'm thinking more of things of the earth. You know, it does have an impact on you, even if it is so slow, it's unnoticeable until it reaches the tipping point. You know, like I think everything that we consume has that.
Yeah, well, even just I think the habit of like making light of sin, like where it becomes the point where like, you're almost not bothered by it anymore. It's like, it's just, that's, you know, that's Hollywood these days, like, and it's you just sort of like, you just sort
Don't
of like look
worry about
past,
it.
yeah. It's like, yeah, what can you do? Like, I don't know.
What
Like,
else are you gonna watch?
it's like things that should, and again, it takes a lot to get me like offended. Like, I'm not someone that's just going to be like that, but like there are things that are said or happen on screen that like probably should bother us more, but we're just so like used to it, and we've got in the habit of overlooking it that it's. I think like you said, like, there is an aspect that like, whether or not we're doing those things, it is sort of affecting our spirit, like our discernment, the way we understand sin and some of that. But I think too, like the Sabina, because you're sort of meant almost this I don't know, like leaving. Maybe that sounds cliche, leave room for God, like, but the like allowing the Holy Spirit to be a part of that process. Because I think this question, a lot of the times, what people want is like they want rules, they want a guideline of like, okay, here's the 5 things. If it has none of these, then like go watch it. If it has any of those, don't go watch it. If it has, if it has one of those, then like watch it with your youth pastor. Like whatever it is, like we sort of want the rules, and it's I don't know, maybe that'd be weird.
I was like, what? Don't do that.
But like, we sort of want the rule, right? Like we want this is the way and we just bring this with us into every movie, sort of taking away like. Like God can, like, there's a process even while you're watching. And I don't know, I tend to, not all the time, but I feel like I found for my own life, like most of the time, if I'm not sure, then that probably means like I shouldn't be doing it. Like I think there is a sense that we just don't like being uncomfortable. And like, so sometimes we're not sure just because it's like challenging and it's like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to have them challenge what I believe. Like, this is bad. Like, I think it's okay. It's good to be challenged. Like, not every time we're not comfortable is bad, but I think a lot of the times if it's like, well, should I? Like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm overly conservative, but like, I lean on the side of that's probably means you just shouldn't. Like, if you're asking those questions, then I don't know. But I do think kind of to touch on something even that you said too, Naya. Like, I don't know. I think sometimes too, which again goes back to your article, Sabina. Like it's okay to work that out in real time too. Like I think there is sort of this sense that like I don't know, like there's sort of this fear mongering almost of okay, well, if you even are exposed to any of it, if you hear a bad word in this movie, like it's too late. You've been affected. It has a foothold in your life, and like just kind of this idea that like we're just totally. I don't know. Like once we push play, we lose all agency, and we just sort of accept what's happening, and there's nothing we can do. As opposed to like no, like you're actively engaged. I do think, which is what you said, Naya. Like for me, the sexual stuff is maybe the exception because I do think there is. I don't know if gateway is the right word, but like I think that can lead to like images and stuff that I think you just look at like the statistics for pornography in the church. Like that's just not something that you want to necessarily like. Well, I saw a lot of pornographic content. Like I wrestled through that. Like I think stay away from that. But I think some of the other stuff, like I don't know, like
wrestled through that. Sorry, that's gonna be funny.
Yeah, what an experience that was. But
no,
I don't know, like things, but like violence or profanity, like I don't know, like or just like worldview stuff. Like even if it's not like content, it's just like ideologically stuff that is opposed to scripture. Like I don't know, like I don't think it's like that we're totally powerless against that. Like I think it's okay to actually be thinking and wrestling and like stop a movie halfway through. I don't know for either of you. Like, has there been those? Obviously, you shared one, Sabina. Now, I don't know for you, Naya. Like, has there been any? Or you lack discernment, Naya. You just take it all in. Like, has there been any that you can remember where you're like watching something, or even like a show that you like got partway through and you're like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not.
Can I name drop?
Oh yeah, I hope so.
Don't make us pull out the board and do the investigation.
There's been a lot. There's been several, like especially movies. The most recent example I can think of is The Morning Show, which was really well done, and I was really enjoying it. Dusty and I were watching it together, but I realized like after watching it, like I would go home and just feel so bummed out, and I was like, why am I feeling this way? And it's just because the show, even though it's really, really good, it's really well written, like technically really excellent, it's just gossip the entire time. That's what the whole show is based on, is gossip, backstabbing, unhealthy relationships, whether that's friendships or romantic. And so it's weird, the different things that will make me stop watching a show, because there isn't really anything super explicit that I like from the outside I'd be like, I'm definitely not watching that. But like the effect that it has on you, I think, is a good indicator of whether or not you should continue watching it, as you wrote so beautifully in your article, Sabina.
I think the one, as far as I can remember, I mean, I think there's been stuff that I've just on my own time. The only one I can remember that I was doing a review for, and I was like, I just don't want to do this, was actually, it's not even the worst. Like, I've, like I did the Wuthering Heights movie.
I was gonna say,
there's definitely been worse. Was actually the Suicide Squad, like the James Gunn, like the more recent, like not necessarily. I mean, there is some junk in that movie, but not necessarily the worst one. But I think at that time, I remember watching it. I was like, I'm gonna do a review for this. Like I had access to it, so I was seeing it at home. So it wasn't like I had to leave the theater. But I remember just watching that, and like there's a couple. This is so mindless to me. Like I don't know. Like again, I didn't make it all the way through the movie, so I can't speak to like what I feel about the whole movie. But just a lot of like empty. I don't know. Kind of like you were saying, Sabine. Like there's like content in this that I don't like, but there's also nothing that I do like. Beyond maybe that it's fun or something or entertaining. And like I remember just being like, you know what? I don't need to review this. Like maybe it would be good for the channel to do it. I just don't feel like watching this for another hour and a half, and I just turned it off and skipped that one. And I think that's okay. I think that's like I think because I review stuff, like there's things I've watched that I like. If I wasn't reviewing it, I wouldn't have watched or wouldn't have finished. But I think that's okay, and I think that is sort of a missed, I guess, like I don't know, escape option for Christians that feel like the decision doesn't need to be made every time, like before you hit play. Like there is sort of that active engagement of like, hey, you know what? Like
you don't always have to finish what you started.
Yeah. And I mean, some people like me, like I'm OCD with that. So, but I need to fight that. But what were you going to say, Sabina?
Well, also, a lot of times you can go into something with one motivation and not keep it. Because like I think back on that one show and I'm like, I'm still glad I watched the first 4 episodes. Like it was educational. I did get something out of that. Like I feel like I will be a better writer and I will be more sensitive. And I have learned things from that. But your motivations or experience with a show can also change as you watch it. Or whether it's as the show changes or as you change or different things like that, where I don't necessarily regret starting to watch it, but I know that if I would have kept on at the point where I had gotten to with how I was feeling and how I was being convicted, that it would have been sinful for me personally. And that's a weird balance to try and hold at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that this speaks to the complicated nature of like art and the engagement, which is, I don't know, we like simplicity. We like it's either bad or it's not bad. It's either watch it, don't watch it. And I think, like you were saying, I think there's more nuance to it. Maybe the last thing, and then a couple other things I wanted to ask you about sort of your creative journey, but to put a bow on this topic, actually the way you end your article. So I'm going to read the quote because I think you hit on an important thing. You say, wrestling with perspectives that oppose our own can grow our faith, but we must be honest about our motives. Are we really strengthening our values and beliefs through art with which we engage, or are we merely expanding our apathy in the face of the untrue? That's one question no one can answer for you. And maybe either you or I can speak on that a bit, but because I think you just sort of touched on that as far as like, there is sort of there is value in engaging with things that you disagree with. I think there's a lot of value. That's a lot of what we do at the Collision, like to grow, and like we should be uncomfortable. We should be aware. I think it can grow our own understanding, and I think it can grow our love. It's like for people that have different experiences. But there's also a sense that but we also guard our hearts. Like that is also very much part of Scripture. Like both of those are, very true all throughout Scripture. And I think that can apply to something like films. Like there is, and I think it's hard to quantify. I don't know how you guys would quantify some of that. Of like, where's the balance of like, guarding your heart and growing your apathy, like, or growing your understanding for people. But I don't know. Either of you guys have anything to say on just sort of that, or maybe Sabina, like why you sort of ended the article in that way. And I think especially that last line saying like, that's one question no one can answer for you.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I've grown to respect so much about the faculty here at Asbury in the film program since I've gotten here, is the fact that they purposefully ask us to engage with difficult things, and then give us an out. And there's not judgment, and there's not shame, and there's, hey, we understand. You're not me. I haven't had the same life as you. I haven't had the same experiences as you. I don't have the same struggles as you. If you can't engage with this right now because you're not to that point spiritually, or you're not to that point, because that sounds like you should get to that point, because that's not your spiritual experience right now. That's okay. But that's something that is between you and God that you have to figure out, and you have to actively figure out, and not just passively go with things. And I think it's interesting you talking about like quantifying things and how much is too much, because I think about it and like the show I stopped watching was very like lots of language, lots of different stuff. But I watched Ted Lasso the semester before with an entire friend group of people every week, and so fed into by that. Like so life-giving in the storytelling, in the character arcs, in the way that it asks whether redemption is possible for people. And it's got tons of language. It's one of those shows I'm like, Mom, Dad, if you were okay with it, you would love this. But it's one of those things where it's like it has the same amount of this thing that can be problematic as the show that I stopped watching. But it has so many other things to say that are actually life-giving that it comes out with a totally different feeling at the end. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Naya?
No, I agree. It's interesting just how, like, even if there's, like, some shows I think have more profanity in it, but maybe handle a topic much better than a show with no profanity in it. And you do feel it is more life-giving, even though it has something maybe you don't like agree with or use often. Like, it still can be super powerful. Like Good Will Hunting, like a movie like that. Like every other word is the F word, but it's such a powerful movie. It's so well written. Like afterwards, I go away feeling so inspired and so like full of thankfulness and full of joy from that movie. Yeah, it's interesting just seeing. It just depends on I think the heart of the project and how the story and the themes are actually communicated at the end of the day.
Yeah, which is why I think like, sort of not that it's bad to have like guidelines and like to have thought about things. Like, I'm not trying to suggest like just go in blind, just wing it, shoot from the hip. Like I think have those convictions.
Go read The Collision first, guys.
yeah. Hold on. If you don't have your own convictions, let us be your Jiminy Cricket conscience. But I think that's why why it can be there can be a crutch to lean too much on that is because like I think like horror movies, like you mentioned, Sabina, there are people will ask like should Christians watch horror movies, or do you ask me do I like horror movies, and it's like, well, which horror movie are we talking about? Like there's there's a lot of movies I think are just like pure garbage, just pure death spectacle. Like it's just nothing of value. And then there's some horror movies that like this is some of the most like edifying stuff in cinema. Like this is very much it's same genre, same themes, same content in some ways, but like the filmmakers can tell the story in a very different way. Which is why I think you sort of need to discern through it and like have those conversations and not just fall back. And the verse I often use for this conversation, Matthew 10:16, it says, "Behold, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." And obviously he wasn't talking about watching Netflix, but I think I love those two. Like we're called to be like innocent, like guard your heart. You're not less of a Christian because you're concerned about feeding yourself with filth, like, but also be wise as serpent, like be engaged, like be thoughtful. Like you don't need to be wise if you're just totally sheltered. Like there is sort of both of those, kind of the balance to both of those. So again, we love that you wrote that article. We love that we were able to publish it. Just because I think these are questions that are still worth asking, even if they have sort of like a stigma now of like, oh, you're one of those Christians that cares about content. Like you need to love the arts more. This, I don't know. The whole narrative to me is like, no, like still still ask those questions. Like we still do that for our collision reviews, and that's why we do it. Is
Mhm.
like, look, we're still going to talk about the content. Like, we're going to talk about the movie and the themes and stuff too. But like deciding whether it's worth it, like edifying, is still a very important role in that. So love that you wrote that article. Did want to while we have you here, did want to ask you a couple questions too before we end the podcast, and just get your perspective as a young creative. Obviously, Naya is herself a young creative. I'm a not quite as young creative, but still a relatively young creative. Because now as a film grad, I was an English major, so like I went through not through film, but through
Go.
I did mine through more like the creative writing side of the arts is sort of my jam. But wanted to get your perspective because I know obviously both me and Naya are very much like pro. It's good for Christians to be in the arts and into those programs. And I don't know, maybe it's changed now. Maybe you had more people, not that I had a lot of pushback or anything, but there was more of a stigma of like, why are you doing that instead of like Christian studies or business or something that can be like, in service of the kingdom of God, not just film
Yeah.
and writing.
Yeah.
So
It's
maybe
interesting. Yeah. Sorry,
No.
go ahead. Well, I was gonna say it's interesting. I know I want to hear about Sabina, about your life, but I was just thinking about like what I'm so grateful for when I was going into college. Like I didn't think twice that it was weird that I was a Christian going into the arts, and I think that's because of how I was raised, and that's because of like the friends I had surrounded myself with. And I think that that's kind of how it needs to be. Like I think Christians and art, good art, should be inseparable.
Yeah, well, hey, Nav, if I had known you back then, I would have told you that you were weird.
Thanks. I
so just know-
appreciate that. I need to be humbled a little bit.
But maybe Samir, tell us a little bit about like what you're studying in school and kind of what led you on that path, and I don't know, just maybe sort of what that experience. You're almost done your third year, so you're near the end, but not quite. So maybe share a little bit, just sort of what has that experience been like to be. Especially someone coming from your background as like a missionary kid, like I don't know, that seems like a crazy journey, but maybe share a little bit sort of what your experience has been.
Yeah, it's actually been incredibly wild. I think growing up, North Macedonia is such a small country with so little opportunities, even if you're from there, that then limiting it more to like, okay, someone who's marginal in Macedonian and not necessarily fluent in Macedonian just shrinks it even more. But it's been really great coming to Asbury and not even having a great experience with classes, which I have, but also so many opportunities that I just never would have dreamed about before. I mean, I got to intern at the Paris Olympics with our film program. We've had different things that like short films that have been able to be made, or I just got contracted for the first time to write a script for Focus on the Family, which is like, oh, all my dreams are coming true. This is fantastic. But it's the first time that not only have there been opportunities, but there's also people pushing you and helping you find the doors to pursue things and actually realize your dreams rather than just studying your dreams, which has been really cool.
And if you felt like, even just like through church or through your community, like, I don't know, like what do people think about the fact that you're studying what you're studying? Like, has that, I know your school, like you guys have a strong programs and stuff there. I've been there once, 2 years ago. That was a long time ago. But have you felt like the general level of like support, or has there been any of like, that's good to do now until you get like a real career path? Like,
there's always a little bit of confusion. There have been a lot of questions more recently of like, oh yeah, but will you be able to eat with ChatGPT? And I'm like, well, we're hoping. But I think that it's always has felt like it's starting off more with curiosity more than condemnation at this point, which is good. Of just like, okay. Well, what's that like? Like, what does that actually look like? Is this a real career? Is this a hobby that you're studying? What is happening? So I think that it does always kind of start with that uncertainty, but I think that in general, church and family and things have been really supportive. And have kind of come behind it in a way that is more than I would have expected, which is really sweet.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's funny. There is an article. This humbled me not long ago. It was listing like the 5 like not necessarily most useless, but like the 5 like the 5 like degrees that like are the least gonna get the least benefit from, and I realized like in my schooling like, I had 3 of the 5. Like did the philosophy, I did the theology, and I did the English, and I was like, oh,
No!
I made some poor choices along the way, but I don't
Oh my
regret them.
goodness.
Hey,
I'm
you're well-rounded. You're prepared now.
Yeah, I may have stayed at the bottom, but at least I spread out along the bottom of all these useless degrees. Were you there? Like, because your school obviously became viral and like it was all over the place because of, like was it 23 like the revivals? Were you a
Yes,
student at the
23.
school at that time?
I was not yet. It was actually weird. We were visiting the States for a lot of reasons. I was a senior in high school, and I was at Asbury the weekend before it started for
Wow.
a scholarship competition, and everything was totally normal. And I left, and I had a friend who was going here at the time, and we had just flown back to Macedonia, and she starts texting me in the middle of her night, and she's like, weird stuff is happening. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she's sending pictures, and she's like, I don't know, but we haven't left yet, and it doesn't seem like we're gonna be leaving soon. Yeah, so I got to experience a lot of the revival through her and through different connections that I had here, but I was not actually present for it.
I mean, what I heard from that is that there was no revival, and then you went to campus, and like right
And
after
that's
that,
what I'm
revival
hearing.
broke
Yeah,
up.
I appreciate
That's-
I'm not the only one who's getting this message.
I don't want to say causation, but it seems like more than coincidence.
I have a professor who spoke in the chapel before the revival started, and he'll joke. He's like, "Yeah, I laid the framework, you guys. It was
Yeah.
I did that."
Yeah, the seeds were planted. And,
The seeds were
others,
planted.
Others
Thoroughly.
enjoyed the harvest. I wanted to ask you too, because I know a lot of times, I don't know, and I think I can be guilty of this just because I default to it. Sometimes I just conditioned to it. That I don't know. There can be like people think of like the faith-based Christians in the arts and stuff, or not necessarily that you are. I don't know what your career aspirations are like. Not that you want to just be in the Christian faith-based industry or whatnot, but there can be a sense like if you talk about that, it's usually like, here's what's wrong. Here's why it's bad. Here's why it needs to change. But kind of the opposite of that, like as someone that is sort of just entering into that world and wanting to contribute and create and tell stories, like, I don't know, like, what about that excites you? Like, I think it seems to be like a very exciting time right now as far as, I think there's still room for growth, but there's definitely been growth, and there's a lot of talented creators out there. And I don't know, like in all, not just film, but like in all the arts right now, like, I don't know, like what is it about sort of that world right now that you're like, this will be awesome to be able to like, step into that and like be a part of that?
Yeah. I think the most exciting thing about it for me is that there are more and more faith-based stories that aren't trying to say they're Christian stories. And I think that a huge part of that is, I mean, a story can't be Christian. A Christian is someone who has a relationship with God. Like, we don't need to have the entirety of the Bible laid out for us in an hour and 30 minutes in order to consider something spiritual to an extent. And I think that more and more companies and studios and different things are starting to realize, oh, we can start playing with like this balance of grace and truth. We can be finding things that like, hey, a story can be about a Christian and not have every character in the story be a Christian. It can be about what faith looks like without having a step-by-step guide to salvation in it. It can have all of these things. And I think giving ourselves the space to do that for the first time is the first time I've been excited as a Christian for where this industry is going, because it's no longer, hey, bring your friend to youth group and it will tell them how to convert films. It's, I can watch this as someone who already has faith and be challenged in my faith for the first time with these different things that are growing and getting more popular. And I think that's a really exciting development to be happening in the faith-based space.
Yeah, I think just the freedom of, because I know there used to always be people would blame like Christian creatives and be like, they just tell the same. They got to do it, and it's like, you know what? Like maybe there's some of that. But I think the fault really lied more with like the audience, with the people paying for it. Like I think there's been some shackles on creatives of like, in order to tell a story in this industry, you gotta have these, and it's like, I don't think that's necessarily just the creatives, and it feels like there's been enough of a shift now of like Christianity, Christians waking up to the power of the arts and the value of like a well-told story and not just like gospel propaganda that it seems like, and there's been success, like there's been enough success of these stories to be like, hey, this isn't just the ABCs of becoming a Christian. Like it's actually a story with characters and a plot and
problems,
cinematography,
what?
and like
there's conflict. I can't imagine.
It's like this is actually like enjoyable and not just like out of duty you gotta watch. Like, I think because there's been some of those that have broken through, it just seems like people are more accepting of that, and I don't know. I think it would be an exciting time for like for any Christian creative to like step in and be like, hey, I can be a part of something like at the cusp of really this taking off. So yeah, I just wanted to get your perspective as a young creative. What do you say? Maybe the last thing, and then we can move on to the final segment. But just maybe if there's like a parent or something listening, like what would you say to like a parent that is perhaps like not necessarily closed off to it, but unsure about like whether the arts, an arts program is a good decision for their child as opposed to something else? Like, I don't know, what would you say? Just obviously you can only speak from your own experience, but what would you maybe encourage or say to that parent?
Yeah, I would give them the space to be able to hold their concerns and have faith in the first step anyway. And I think the reason I would say that is that was kind of my dad when I was going and choosing a degree. I love him so much. He's fantastic. He was like, you're telling me you're going to move to Hollywood and you're going to be corrupted and you're going to be on set all the time and what's going to happen to you? And I'm like, first of all, I'm a writer. No one's going to care. There's not going to be paparazzi. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm not going off the deep end. But I think that a lot of growth has happened, even just in our relationship together, as he had the faith to support me as I took the first step. And then we learned to grow in that together. And I learned where his concerns were right, and he learned what things were really like in different areas. And I think that there's a fear with some parents of like, oh, if they take that first step, I'm never going to get them back. Like, they're just going to fall off the face of the earth and all of these things are going to go away. But you know your child and you have a relationship with them and you can trust them and support them while being honest about your reservations and feel that out together and be that support and be that voice of wisdom for them, because they still need your voice of wisdom. We don't figure it out when we go to college. Trust me. We're living off of ramen. It's not a good time.
I object to that statement. I mean, that.
But yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing that I would say, is to find a way to not let your own uncertainties shackle your kid to an extent, but also not feel like you have to make the uncertainties go away. That there is a middle ground in between those two, and some of the beauty of that is figuring it out together.
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe just bring it all the way back and then we can go to the last segment, but almost the same mindset as we talked about with like engaging films, of push beyond just the like, this is a bad decision, this is a good decision, like, sort of the framework, and actually engage with the questions and the specific person and the role of the Holy Spirit, and like, is this actually going to be a really edifying, is this God's guidance in this, or is this for the wrong reason? Is it something that we should be concerned about? I think just moving beyond, because I think there is a lot of just sort of like, before we even ask the questions, we sort of got the answers that it's bad. And I think push beyond that. I think we're all, I don't know if I would call it success stories, but we're all testaments of going through an arts program, or in the process.
We're
of
all
going
here.
through.
Whether or not we're going to succeed, we're all here.
Yeah, we're all here, and we all love Jesus still. So there is that. Oh, something else I know that I will soon love, and I think probably the people of America will, and beyond, maybe even North Macedonia will love as well, is the final segment of this podcast, which is things we like that you should like too. So, Sabina, this is, as our guest of honor, we're going to give you the floor, which is probably good news for our audience, that they don't have to hear from me or Naya recommend something that we like. So we will give you the floor. What is one thing that you like that you think other people should like too?
All right, one thing that I like that I think other people should like too is the entire story and culture around Les Miserables, which is the most nerdy choice, but favorite book of all time, favorite musical of all time. I have engaged with like 17, 18 different adaptations of this story at this point. I can tell you the differences between all of them. It's fascinating. Yes, I would say that that is something that I like that other people should like too.
I love Les Mis. It's the only musical that my fiance likes.
Oh, well, I mean, if you had to just
saying
choose
a
one,
lot.
he chose a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, good choice. Very
See,
good choice.
this will be my confession. There's two parts. So before you judge me,
Daniel.
I'm
before
already
you-
judging you. It's really too late.
But before you stone me too quickly, one, I have never seen the musical in any form, any movie, the play, but I did read the book. Actually, not just a couple of years ago, I finally read the book, and it's fantastic. It's one of the few. Like I'm an English. I got English major, so like I've read almost all the big hitting classic books, and just had never
Yes.
read that because it's like this thick.
It's a
and
break.
This is true.
I don't know. And like it's one of the only, like, having read so many of the classics, like it's one of the only ones I can really remember, like the self-awareness of like in the middle being like, this is a classic. Like this book is so good. Like probably one of the best books I've read in a long time. Definitely up there in the top. So I need to read or watch not like opposed to it. I just have never got around to it. What is the because I'm assuming there's like a dozen adaptations and stuff. Like
So
is
many
the most
adaptations.
recent like with like the Hugh Jackman, or is it Hugh Jackman, or is it
It's Hugh Jackman.
yeah, is that, and I know there was an older one, like for
Mel
someone that's never
Gibson.
seen any of them, what would be the one to watch?
Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna make Naya mad at me now. I am not a fan of the Hugh Jackman one. I don't know. I think there is merit to it, but I think in comparison to the vast riches of all of the many types of adaptations there are of this story, it's very low on the list.
I think that's a general consensus, I would say.
Yeah. There is a 2019 version that is a filmed stage version in concert, so it's not quite the same, but it's got some of the best members of the cast of any recording, and it's filmed on stage, so it's very pretty.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that one higher than the 2012 Hugh Jackman. Sorry,
Well,
I still
I
like
need
Greatest
to-
Showman, I swear.
Well, why were they all British? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, okay, well, can we just agree that Americans think everywhere in Europe sounds British? Like, it's German or British, and there's not really any in between.
Unfortunately.
And you can only be German if you're evil.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you at that
Exactly.
point.
In my dreams, I'm always being chased by someone, and it's normally a Nazi. So
Yeah, that can
that
happen.
proves your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also proves that Naya may need to seek some counseling.
Oh, well, there's that.
some intervention. But I will try and watch one of these movies at some point. I will say that, like, as far as like finding wrestling with, like, again, I haven't seen the movie, but like from the book,
Mhm.
like there's so much, I don't know how you would say, like, gospel in that.
Yes.
I don't know if Victor Hugo, like, I don't know what his own faith was, what he
Mhm.
believed, but like there's so much stuff in there that will also make you uncomfortable too, and like
Yes.
convict you. Well, it's not just like a feel good. Like there are definitely like, characters that are very much like strong. Reminded me of the guy from the Wake Up Dead Man, like this, like a picture of a good Christian, you know,
Yeah.
like, and it's, so I love that, but there's also stuff that convicts you about just like the way we treat people, and so I can't recommend the movie. I can recommend the book, but I don't need to recommend it because you have it straight from Sabina, that this is the thing that you should check out. So we hope that you will all like that, and I know something that both me and I have liked is having you on the podcast, Sabina. This has been fun to get you on. I'm glad we were able to get you on in, like, you know, in person or digital person, not just in written form. Definitely we'll be hounding you to write more for us, and maybe even have you back on the podcast at some point, because this has been fun. Maybe let us know, because Naya mentioned some of your, like, your bio, some of the stuff you're up to. For people that want to kind of follow what you're doing writing, I know you're working on like some fictional books. Like, How can people follow what you're doing, connect with you, find your writing? Like, is there any like links or places for them to check you
Yeah,
out?
so I've got a website that's well, by the time this releases, it will be fully updated. SabinaBoyer.com. Nice thing about having a name that everyone misspells is no one else uses it as a website domain.
Woo!
But I've got things on there of short films and scripts and different things that are just readable, watchable. I also have Instagram, Sabina Boyer Writer, if people wanted to follow me there. And yeah, those are the main two places.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll make sure to link all this stuff. I'll admit until this episode, I don't know if I messed up. I've been calling you Sabrina Tanaya.
Every
speaking
time,
of-
like, there's no R.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And to be fair, that's not the weirdest thing it's morphed into.
Oh,
So,
what is the weirdest?
Sardina. Please don't bring that back. I don't know what they were on. I don't know if they just hated me.
Oh,
This
no.
is yeah, and it's a really awkward thing to correct someone for when they're like, "Oh,
Sardina?
hi, Sardina," and I'm like, "Oh man." Like
That's tough.
Well,
Yeah. So
I'll
it could
recommend
be
the-
worse.
Yeah.
if you do end up going to Hollywood and losing your soul, that should be your like stage name, like your Hollywood.
That should be
name.
my stage.
Sardina.
Okay, well, at least it will be memorable.
But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your article. We'll link the article. We'll link your website, all that fun stuff, where they can check out your writing. Encourage everyone to do so. And also encourage everyone to join us again next week, every Thursday, for more conversations on faith and pop culture.